All right, everyone. Today we are going to be talking about absolute value and absolute value functions. So, we're going to start off with a little bit of review from your pre-algebra days. So, the absolute value of a number tells us the number's distance from zero. And you might be thinking, hey, I thought it makes everything positive. And you are right. We'll talk about that in a second. So, because distance is always positive, then that's why we hear people say, well, absolute value, right, makes things positive. All right. And so we write the absolute value of the real number A as this. We take our real number A and we stick it in these bars, kind of like two parallel bars. There. All right, so let's go ahead and evaluate the following. What we're thinking about, right, is just that number's distance from zero. So 2, the absolute value of 2 is just going to be 2. But with -1, it's 1 away from 0, which is 1 to the left. So it becomes positive 1, 15, it's just 15. Go ahead and take a second to do those next 3. All right, so -5 here. Absolute value of that is 5. Absolute value of 7 is 7. Ooh, here we got to do some addition. So this is going to be -1 in here. Or is that's going to be positive 1. All right, we're out here killing it. Great job. So now what we're going to do is evaluate each of these and then we're going to compare them. So kind of where I left this blank, we're going to insert greater than, less than, or equal to. See how these compare. So here, the absolute value of 8 versus the absolute value of -8, which is also going to be 8. Those are equivalent. The absolute value of -2 and just the number 2, not taking any absolute values here. All right, well, those also equivalent. All right, next, notice here I have this negative outside the absolute value, and here I have it inside the absolute value. So here, the absolute value of 3 is 3, but there's still that negative out front. Whereas here, the absolute value of -3 is going to be positive 3. All right. All right, go ahead and take a minute to do the next 3. And we'll come back and talk about it. Great. So here, 5, how does 5 compare with positive 1? 5 is greater than positive 1. Here, it's going to be -1, and we're trying to see how it compares with 8 plus 8, which is going to be 16. So 16 is greater, so we'll say -1 is less than 16. And then here we'll have 4 minus 7 on the left. And 4 on the right. So this will be -3. How it compares to 4. So let's call that, say that that's less than. All right. So we can also use number lines to visualize absolute value as this distance from 0. So for example, if I'm thinking about this absolute value of 3 being 3, let's think 3 is here, 0 is here, right? This distance is the absolute value of 3. So notice the distance from -3, right, is the same, just the opposite direction, right? Those are equivalent. All right, so let's go ahead and kind of graph these next couple. Like, what are those looking like? All right, so -2, we visualize as this distance. So if this is where -2 is, and that's 0. The absolute value of -2 is telling us this distance right here. The absolute value of 4 is telling us this distance right here. -3.5 is around here. And this is 0, right? So it's showing us this distance here. 2.5 is about here. So it's showing us this distance here. Alrighty. So, last but not least, we're going to look at expressions and functions. Alrighty. So, an absolute value function, we've been talking about expressions so far, is a function that contains at least one absolute value expression, right? Just like it sounds. So, absolute value function. I always tell my students we're not creative in math when it comes to naming things. We just kind of tell it like it is. So usually things are exactly what they sound like. All right, and the parent function of the absolute value function is f of x. Ooh, did not mean to do that. Get out of here. F of x is equal to the absolute value of x. Parent functions, you'll remember, just the plainest, boring version of each function family. All right, so what we're going to do is evaluate these expressions for given values of x. So if x plus 3, and I want to evaluate when x is -5, I'm going to take this x right here and I'm going to replace it with -5. So I like to use color when I'm doing stuff like this because I think it helps me to visualize. Oh, -5 and x here swapped really nicely. All right, so then -5 plus 2 is going to be -3. So get the absolute value of -3, which is 3. Next, I'm going to do the same thing here, except I'm going to be plugging in 6 for x. All right, so that's going to be the absolute value of 2, which is 2. And this last one. All right, so 5 minus 8 is going to be -3, which is +3. All right, so go ahead to the last 3. Pause the video. Don't cheat. I see you. Pause the video. Come back. And then we'll go over them. All right, welcome back. This one, we need to remember that we are multiplying here. So I use parentheses. So it's going to look like that. So the value of -6, which is 6. Here, again, more multiplying. So anytime I'm evaluating an expression and multiply like this, I'm going to use parentheses, right? Because this isn't -22, this is -2 times 2. It would look like -22 if I didn't put those parentheses in there. So this is going to be -4 plus 6, which will be -2 or 2. All right, and last one. Plugging in 4 So this will look like 12 minus 7, which is 5. Take the absolute value of that and just get 5. All right, folks, thank you for joining me to talk about absolute value and functions. Tomorrow we'll look at what these look like graphically and compare them to linear functions. All right,